The room felt too quiet for something so final. I stood across the table while my father slid the paper toward me. His face showed no anger. That was the worst part. It was calm, decided. "This is for the best," he said. My mother looked down at her hands.
She didn't speak.
My brother leaned back in his chair like this was just another meeting. Like this was normal. I read the paper once. Then again. It was simple. Legal language. Clean and sharp. I was being removed from the family. From the business. From the name. From everything. For something I didn't do? I asked. No one answered. "We can't risk the company," my father said at last. "This is bigger than you. Bigger than me." That was the moment I understood. Truth didn't matter here. Only protection. Only image. And I wasn't the one worth protecting. My brother finally spoke. "Just sign it. Don't make this harder." Harder. I picked up the pen. My hand didn't shake. Not because I was strong, but because something inside me had already gone quiet. I signed. And just like that, I stopped being their daughter. My name is Emily Carter. I was 25 years old when my family erased me. That day didn't feel real at first. It felt like I was watching someone else's life fall apart. I walked out of that building with nothing but my bag and the clothes I wore. No goodbye. No one followed me. The air outside felt colder than it should have. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at my phone. No messages. No calls. It was already done. By the time I started the engine, the news had spread. My name was already tied to the scandal. The one I didn't create. My brother made the mistake. He moved money where it didn't belong. Risked everything. But I was the one removed.
Cleaner that way.
I drove without thinking. Past places I knew. Past a life that no longer belonged to me. That night, I stayed in a small motel on the edge of the city. The kind no one asks questions in. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just sat on the bed, staring at the wall, trying to understand how fast everything can disappear. One signature. That was all it took. The first week was the hardest. Not because I had nothing, but because I had no one. I called a few people I thought I could trust. Old friends. Former coworkers. People who once said I mattered. Most didn't answer. The ones who did kept it short. "I'm sorry, Emily. I just can't get involved." That sentence repeated in different ways. No one wanted to be tied to the scandal.
My family made sure of that.
They controlled the story before I could even speak. And I let them. I stopped trying to explain. I stopped calling. Silence became easier. I found a small apartment a few days later. It wasn't much, but it was mine. No history. No expectations. I paid in advance using what little money I had left. Then I started looking for work. That was harder than I expected. Every time they saw my name, something changed. Polite smiles turned into careful distance. "We'll get back to you." They never did. At night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. Not the betrayal, but the moment I realized it didn't matter to them. That hurt more than anything. I took the first job that didn't ask questions. It was at a small office handling basic data entry. No one cared who I was.
No one looked twice at my past.
That was exactly what I needed. I kept my head down. I worked. I listened. For the first time, I saw how things really moved behind the surface. Small decisions. Quiet influence. The kind my family never respected. They believed power had to be loud. They were wrong. I saved everything I could.
Every dollar mattered now.
After work, I stayed up late, teaching myself new skills. Finance. Contracts. Business structure. Things I should have been taught before. Things I now had to learn alone. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, something changed. The fear started to fade. Not completely, but enough. I stopped thinking about what I lost. I started thinking about what I could build. It wasn't fast. It wasn't easy, but it was real. And for the first time since that day, my life felt like it belonged to me again. By the end of the first year, I understood something my family never did. Power isn't about control. It's about position. Who owns what? Who decides what? Who signs the final paper? That's where everything begins. I changed jobs after a year. Better pay. More responsibility. Still quiet. Still unnoticed. But I was learning. I watched how companies grew and how they failed. Most didn't fall because of big mistakes. They fell because of small ones no one paid attention to.
Debt.
Poor planning. Bad partnerships. I paid attention. At night, I started working on something of my own. Small at first. Just ideas.
Plans.
Numbers. Then action. I invested carefully.
Built slowly.
No risks I couldn't control. No noise. No attention. Years passed like that. Step by step.
Piece by piece.
Until one day I looked at what I had built and realized it was no longer small. It was strong.
Stable.
Independent. And for the first time, I wasn't the one struggling anymore. I didn't rush success. That was the difference between me and the life I left behind. Every move I made had a reason. Every step had a plan behind it. I wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. I was building something that could stand, without explanation. My small investment turned into steady income. Then I expanded.
Slowly.
Carefully. I studied markets. I watched people. I learned who made decisions and who only pretended to. Within 3 years, I owned a small consulting firm. Nothing flashy, but it worked. It brought in real clients, real results. No one knew my past. That was intentional. I kept my circle small, trusted no one too quickly, spoke less than I knew. It gave me an advantage. I wasn't chasing attention. I was building control. And control doesn't need noise. Emily Carter still existed, but not in the way she used to. Professionally, I became someone else. Not a fake name, but a new version of me. One that wasn't tied to my family. People saw me as calm.
Direct.
Reliable. They didn't see the past. They didn't see the betrayal. That worked in my favor. Clients trusted results, not history. And I delivered. My company grew stronger.
Bigger contracts.
Better connections. I moved into a better office. Hired a small team. Every decision stayed under my control. No risks. No shortcuts. I built everything the right way. And I made sure no one could take it from me again. It happened by accident. I was reviewing a market report when I saw a familiar name. Carter Holdings. My family's company. For a moment, I just stared at it. Then I kept reading. Declining revenue. Poor investments. Mounting debt. They were struggling.
Badly.
I leaned back in my chair, letting that sink in. The company they chose over me was failing. I didn't feel happy. Not yet. Just aware. Something had shifted. I didn't act right away. That would have been emotional. And emotion leads to mistakes. Instead, I watched. Week after week, I followed their situation. Quietly. Carefully. Everything pointed to the same outcome. They were losing control. The same people who once decided my fate were now reacting instead of leading. It was subtle at first. Then it became clear. They were running out of time. Opportunity doesn't knock loudly. It shows up quietly and waits to be noticed. I saw mine clearly. Their company needed help. Real help. And I was in the perfect position to provide it. Not as their daughter, but as a solution. I made a few calls, gathered information, built a plan, a clean acquisition, professional, legal, final. I didn't rush it. I prepared it, because when I stepped back into their world, I wasn't going to ask for anything. I was going to own it. Walking back into that building felt different. It looked the same, but I didn't. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't angry. I was ready. No one recognized me at first. That didn't surprise me. People don't expect change at this level. I introduced myself as a potential investor. They listened, because now I had something they needed. I sat across the same table. Different position. Different power. My father looked older. My mother looked tired. My brother, uncertain. I presented the numbers calmly. Their situation was worse than they thought. They needed help. And I was offering it. They didn't question my authority. They couldn't afford to. I kept it simple. I would acquire controlling interest in the company.
I would stabilize it.
Rebuild it. In return, they would step down and work under new leadership. Under me, they hesitated. Of course they did, but they had no options. It didn't take long. Desperation shortens decisions. They agreed,
Not because they trusted me.
but because they had no choice. I signed the papers. This time I knew exactly what it meant.
Control.
The next meeting was different. Private. Just us. I closed the door and sat down. Then I said it. My name is Emily Carter. Silence. Real silence. They finally saw me, and everything changed.
My father stared at me.
My mother's eyes filled with shock. My brother went pale. None of them spoke at first. They didn't expect this. They didn't expect me. But I stayed calm. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I'm not here for revenge, I said. That was true.
Not the kind they expected.
I'm here because I built something better. I watched them process that. They didn't argue. They couldn't, because everything I said was backed by reality. The structure changed immediately. My father reported to the board.
The board answered to me.
My brother moved into a lower role. No authority. No control. My mother stayed out of operations. Everything became clear.
Defined.
Controlled. They struggled at first. Not with the work. With the reality. They weren't in charge anymore. And I was. I didn't make it harder. I just made it real. Within months, the company stabilized. Then it improved. Better systems. Better decisions. Growth returned. Not fast, but steady and real. Something changed over time. Not forgiveness. Not yet.
But respect.
They saw what I built, what I became, and what they lost. One evening, my mother finally spoke. We were wrong. Simple words.
Late.
But real. I didn't respond right away. Some things don't need quick answers. I didn't need apologies. I needed distance.
Clarity.
And I had both. What they did no longer define me. What I built did. I stood in my office, looking over the company. Not theirs anymore.
Mine.
Everything was stable.
Strong. Secure. No one could take it from me.
Not again.
They disowned me.
That was their choice. This was mine. I didn't destroy them. I didn't humiliate them. I gave them something harder. A front row seat to everything I became without them. And every day they walked into that building, they were reminded of one simple truth. They didn't lose a daughter. They lost the one person who could have saved them sooner.